This video demonstrates the Query Builder from the GTViewer Add-on Apps Bundle version 3. A query for GTViewer is created from a query definition file like this. This poll query is very simple, and creating its definition file isn't hard, but it does require the entries to be specified correctly, and you may have to look up the table and attributes for the feature. If we run this query, you'll see that it has a single prompt for the poll number, and if we enter in a piece of text, you'll see it returns everything that matches, and if we click on one of the records in the list, it will locate on the feature. There's a much easier way to create your queries than manually constructing the query definition file. The Query Builder is an add-on app that's been around for a while, and it allows you to point and click create a query definition file without much effort. Let's recreate the poll query we just saw with a few changes. I'm going to run the Query Builder from the Applications menu, and it brings up a pretty large form with a lot of different items on it. It's also waiting for you to select a feature because the Query Builder works by taking the information from a feature you select and populate as much of the form as it can. So I'm going to scoot this out of the way so we can find a poll. I'm going to select the poll we had just located on, and you'll notice that it populated a lot of stuff in our Query Builder already. I'm going to run through some of the items on this form just so you'll have an idea of what you can change. So to start with, you have to pick a query type. This is a locate query to find a poll, so it's just a standard query. There are several different ones you can choose from. You can give it the name of the query, which is comes from, it basically says find and the feature name, which is find poll, but you can change this to anything you like. You can also specify which table associated with the selected feature that you want to use. And polls have 3 different tables associated with it in this data set, but I'm going to use the poll table. The next part is the prompt list, and this is what defines what it's going to ask you when you run the query, and also what it shows you in the results after it's run the query and it has matching records. So to add an item to the list, you say add prompt. It's going to show you a list of the attributes on the selected feature. It also shows you the values, just so you'll have an idea of what kind of data that you're working with. And I'm going to scroll down here and pick poll number, and you'll see it populated some more stuff for us. It shows you what it's going to ask you or name the prompt in the query form, and also what it puts in the header for the results. You can specify the default search type. In this case, it's begins with, but you could also use ends with, contains, or exact. And it's also got the check mark on visible as prompt. If we uncheck this, it will show up only in the results. So it's not going to be on the query form, but it will be in the query results. And we're going to do that for the next attributes we add. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. You'll see it added to the list. And we're going to add a few more. I'm going to add ownership. I'm going to uncheck visible as prompt. I'm going to add height. I'm going to uncheck visible as prompt. And I'm also going to add class and uncheck visible as prompt. So we've got 4 different attributes defined now. Only the poll number will show up on the form that it presents to the user to start the query, but all 4 of these will show up in the results. Now the next section here, category and feature component, that's what we're going to locate on after we do the query. And since we started by selecting a feature on the map, it automatically sets this to that feature, but you can change it if you want. The locate zoom is the zoom level it's going to locate on when it finds a poll or when you select a poll in the results. You can change this to anything you want. You can also tell it to do a fit on the feature. That's good for linears and area features. Or you can tell it to use the default, which is 500 in this data set. Or you can say current, which is the current that you've got in your view. As you see here, mine's 500, so it'd be the same thing. The keys, that will usually be set automatically because it looks at what the names of the attributes are and tries to figure it out on its own. If you're using GTEC data, it would know that there's a G3E FID and set that to key 2, and you can also set a constant value for these keys too, and in GTEC data the key 1 is usually 0. You can also tell it to apply a preset when it does a locate, and this shows you all the presets that are available. I'm going to leave it on none so it won't change the view when you do a locate. The reference files, these come from the data that you have open, and these are the file names that it plugs into the definition file. You'll see over here that they all just get plugged in right here, and they're used by GTQuery when it compiles the file. There's a lot of other options here. You can filter records out by keeping only certain values or omitting values. You can also change the highlight mode. The query definition area here is the query definition file that it's building as we fill out the form. And we've got everything set up here. I'm going to save this out, and I'm going to put it in with my data. It already has a file name for me, but I'm going to change this because our original poll is also called find poll. So I'm going to change it to poll demo and do save. And we're ready to create our query with GTQuery. Now this top window here labeled script gives you an idea how to use the GT data tools to build the query, but I've already got everything set up, and I'm just going to run GTQuery, specify the file we just saved, query underscore poll demo.txt is the input, and I'm creating a new query underscore poll demo.qry file as our compiled query that GTViewer will use. So I'm going to press enter, let it run. There's very little data in our demo data set, so it's very quick. And it's got a couple of warnings about a couple of records can be matched, but that doesn't matter for this. There's just some issues in our demo data. So it's ready to go into GTViewer, but we have to put the query we just created in our GTM file. So I've got our GTM file opened here, and you find your query info section, and I'm just going to go to the bottom of it and add the query we just created. So it is query poll demo.qry, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to move this back out of the way. We're done with the query builder. I'm going to close it. Now it's not going to show up yet because we haven't reloaded our GTM file. So I'm going to go to File, Reload. It's going to reload the GTM file, and it'll know that the query exists now. And if we go back to our query menu, you'll see we have a find poll here. And I'm going to run it. It looks just like our original query because it's just asking for poll number. I'm going to say 55 and say OK. And it brought back 4 records, but this time in this query, it shows our poll number, it shows ownership, height, and class. And it still works just like all the others. And that covers the basics of using the query builder. There are many things that I didn't go over, but I think you can poke around and figure things out on your own. You can also look for the documentation on GTQuery, and it covers everything that's in the query definition file. So thanks for watching, and go build some queries.